Cleopatra has been remembered for more than 2,000 years as the ultimate symbol of beauty, seduction, and political genius, a queen whose legendary charm supposedly bent emperors, generals, and entire civilizations to her will. From ancient Roman writers to modern Hollywood films, she has been portrayed as an irresistible goddess whose beauty alone altered the course of history. Yet recent archaeological discoveries, genetic research, and forensic investigations suggest a far more complicated and disturbing reality hidden beneath the legend. The woman history remembers as the most beautiful queen in the ancient world may actually have been fighting a silent biological war inside her own body. The search for the truth begins not in a royal palace but beneath the ruins of an ancient temple called Taposiris Magna, where archaeologist Kathleen Martinez has spent decades pursuing what many experts once considered an impossible dream: finding Cleopatra's lost tomb. Unlike traditional Egyptologists, Martinez approached the mystery like a criminal investigation, examining overlooked evidence and challenging long-established assumptions. Her persistence led to one of the most astonishing discoveries in modern archaeology when her team uncovered a massive tunnel carved directly into bedrock more than 12 meters beneath the surface. Stretching over 1,300 meters in length, the tunnel demonstrated a level of engineering precision that rivaled some of the greatest construction achievements of the ancient world. Combined with evidence of a submerged harbor and a network of elite burials, the discovery suggested that Taposiris Magna was not a minor religious site, but possibly a hidden royal complex connected to Cleopatra herself. Among the most mysterious discoveries were mummies found with thin sheets of gold placed inside their mouths. Known as golden tongue amulets, these objects were believed to help the dead speak before the god Osiris in the afterlife. Their presence raised extraordinary questions. Were these individuals members of Cleopatra's inner circle? Were they buried there in preparation for the queen's own arrival? If so, the final resting place of the last pharaoh might be closer than anyone ever imagined. Yet while archaeologists searched for Cleopatra in the earth, geneticists were searching for her in the laboratory. One of the most controversial avenues of investigation centered on the remains traditionally associated with her half-sister, Arsinoe IV. History records that Arsinoe became one of Cleopatra's fiercest rivals during a brutal struggle for power. After siding against her sister during the Alexandrian War, Arsinoe was eventually captured, paraded through Rome, exiled, and later assassinated on the orders of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. In the 19th century, archaeologists discovered an unusual octagonal tomb in Ephesus, and many scholars suspected it belonged to Arsinoe. Because the location matched historical records and the architecture resembled royal Egyptian symbolism, the tomb became a focal point in debates about Cleopatra's ancestry. Early interpretations of skeletal remains from the site suggested the possibility of African ancestry, fueling decades of controversy regarding Cleopatra's ethnic background. However, advances in DNA analysis dramatically altered the story. Using modern sequencing methods and high-resolution CT scanning, researchers determined that the skeleton was not a young woman at all but a teenage boy. The remains carried a Y chromosome and showed no evidence linking them to Cleopatra's family. Instead, the genetic profile suggested origins far from Egypt. Overnight, one of the most famous theories about Cleopatra's ancestry collapsed. But in its place emerged a much darker and more fascinating mystery, one focused not on race or ethnicity but on genetics, disease, and survival. The Ptolemaic dynasty from which Cleopatra descended had practiced extreme intermarriage for generations. In an effort to preserve royal bloodlines and political control, close relatives routinely married one another. Brothers married sisters. Uncles married nieces. Cousins married cousins. Over centuries, the family tree ceased to expand outward and instead folded back upon itself. Modern geneticists refer to this phenomenon as pedigree collapse. In Cleopatra's case, the estimated level of genetic relatedness within her ancestry was astonishingly high. Some researchers estimate that her inbreeding coefficient may have approached 45%, a figure far beyond what is normally seen even among royal dynasties. Such extreme genetic concentration dramatically increases the risk of inherited disorders, developmental abnormalities, fertility problems, and neurological conditions. History provides numerous examples of the consequences. The Spanish Habsburg dynasty, famous for generations of inbreeding, eventually produced rulers afflicted with severe physical and cognitive impairments. Yet Cleopatra appears to have escaped many of these outcomes. Ancient sources describe a woman of extraordinary intelligence, linguistic talent, political skill, and personal charisma. She spoke multiple languages, negotiated with world leaders, commanded military operations, and governed one of the richest kingdoms on earth. How could someone emerging from such a genetically compromised lineage achieve so much? Some scholars argue that Cleopatra may represent an extraordinary statistical survivor, a rare individual who inherited relatively healthy genetic combinations despite overwhelming odds. Others believe she may have suffered from less visible conditions. Historical descriptions of her family mention obesity, swelling of the neck, protruding eyes, weakness, mood instability, and metabolic problems. Modern medical historians have proposed disorders such as Graves' disease, a thyroid condition capable of producing many of these symptoms. Excess thyroid hormones can generate intense energy, sleeplessness, rapid speech, emotional volatility, and risk-taking behavior. Qualities once celebrated as evidence of Cleopatra's brilliance may also have reflected underlying biological conditions. Ancient coin portraits reveal a strong nose, pronounced chin, and thick neck, features that differ significantly from later romanticized depictions. While these images may contain political symbolism, they hint at a woman whose appearance was far more complex than the flawless beauty of legend. Some researchers suggest Cleopatra may have been physically small and fragile, relying less on conventional attractiveness than on intelligence, confidence, education, and presence. Even the famous account of her being smuggled into Julius Caesar's quarters inside a linen sack suggests a woman of relatively slight stature. Yet if Cleopatra suffered from inherited health issues, how did she continue functioning at such an extraordinary level? The answer may lie in another aspect of her reputation often overlooked by modern audiences. Cleopatra was not merely a ruler, she was also deeply interested in medicine, chemistry, and pharmacology. Ancient sources suggest she authored works on cosmetics and medicinal preparations. Egypt itself was a center of scientific knowledge, with access to herbs, minerals, fragrances, and drugs from across the known world. Opium, incense compounds, botanical extracts, and sophisticated cosmetic formulations were all available to the royal court. What later generations interpreted as vanity may actually have been medical self-management. Cosmetics could conceal physical symptoms. Perfumes and herbal preparations could regulate mood and reduce stress. Specialized remedies might have helped control pain, insomnia, or metabolic disorders. In this interpretation, Cleopatra becomes something entirely different from the mythical seductress of popular culture. She emerges as a highly intelligent survivor, using every tool available to overcome limitations imposed by her own biology. Her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony also take on new meaning. Historians traditionally explain these alliances in purely political terms, but some researchers wonder whether Cleopatra understood the dangers of her family's genetic isolation. Significantly, she produced no children through her formal sibling marriages, yet successfully had children with Caesar and Antony, introducing new genetic diversity into the dynasty. Whether consciously or unconsciously, she may have been attempting to rescue her bloodline from generations of genetic decline. Today, as Kathleen Martinez continues her search beneath Taposiris Magna, the significance of finding Cleopatra's tomb extends far beyond archaeology. If her remains are discovered and preserved well enough for modern analysis, scientists could finally answer questions that have lingered for 2 millennia. Was Cleopatra a genetic miracle who overcame extraordinary biological odds? Was she a medical survivor quietly battling inherited disorders while projecting an image of divine perfection? Or was she something even more remarkable, a ruler who understood her own vulnerabilities and transformed them into strengths? The glamorous queen remembered by history may never have existed exactly as legend describes. In her place stands a far more human figure, a woman navigating power, illness, family dysfunction, political chaos, and personal survival on a scale few individuals have ever faced. Beneath the gold, the cosmetics, the mythology, and the propaganda lies a mystery that remains unsolved. Somewhere beneath the Mediterranean coast, hidden within stone corridors and sealed chambers, the final evidence may still wait in silence. And if that tomb is ever opened, it may reveal that Cleopatra's greatest battle was never against Rome at all, but against the genetic legacy flowing through her own veins.